Stop scrolling. Put your thumb on the screen and don't move it. Feel that small drop in your stomach, like a floor tilting. That's not your imagination warming up. That's your body already knowing what your mind hasn't caught up to yet. 40 minutes ago, a voice note started moving. Not a rumor, not a screenshot of a screenshot, an actual voice, unedited, unmistakable, someone's own mouth, in their own words, saying the thing they swore they never said. And it's already in more inboxes than they can count. You didn't send it, let's be clear about that. You didn't record it, didn't leak it, didn't even know it existed until it was already spreading. But somehow, some way, everyone who hears it looks at you differently now. Because the voice note doesn't just confirm a lie, it confirms you were right the entire time. Let that sit for a second before you keep going. Not right in the small way, not I told you so right. Right in the way that makes the guilty start recalculating everything, starting now. You know the feeling of saying something true and watching a room decide not to believe you. You know what it costs to hold your tongue while someone else gets applauded for the version you knew was false. You know the specific exhaustion of being calm while everyone around you rewards the loudest liar in the room. That ends today. Not because you're loud now, because the evidence finally caught up to your patience. Somewhere right now, a phone is buzzing non-stop and nobody wants to look at it. Somewhere a group chat that used to be full of jokes has gone completely quiet. Somewhere someone is staring at their own reflection, trying to remember exactly what they said in that recording. And every single one of them is thinking the same 4 words. How did this happen? Here's how it happened. It happened because truth doesn't stay buried forever. It happened because people who lie for long enough eventually forget they're performing. It happened because somewhere, in some unguarded moment, the mask slipped and a recorder was already running. It happened because the universe, whether they believe in it or not, has a documented habit of keeping receipts. You weren't there when it was recorded. That's not the point. The point is that you were the one who stayed steady long enough for the truth to catch up on its own schedule. While they were busy managing their image, you were busy managing your integrity. And integrity, unlike image, doesn't need defending when the lights come on. Watch what happens to people who get caught believing they'd never get caught. The excuses start small, a misunderstanding, a joke taken out of context, an old grudge being weaponized. Then the excuses multiply, contradict each other, collapse under their own weight. Because a lie only survives in silence, and the silence just ended, permanently, for good. Notice something else while this unfolds around you. Notice how calm you feel compared to the chaos surrounding everyone else right now. That calm isn't luck. That calm is what happens when you never needed the lie to be exposed to know your own truth. You were never waiting for permission to be right. You were just waiting for the room to catch up. Here's the part that will make sense of everything that's happened over the past year. They never thought you were paying attention because you never performed your attention out loud. You didn't announce what you noticed. You didn't confront every inconsistency the moment you saw it. You just filed it away, quietly, the way someone builds a case instead of starting a fight. That's the part they misjudged, completely and fatally. They mistook your patience for passivity, your silence for ignorance, your composure for weakness. People who need to perform confidence out loud almost always underestimate the ones who don't. And underestimation, historically, is the single most expensive mistake a person can make. Think about how many times you were dismissed as too sensitive for noticing what nobody else would say. Think about how many times you were told you were overthinking a pattern that turned out to be exactly right. Think about every single moment someone rolled their eyes at your instincts instead of respecting them. Every one of those moments was them handing you information about themselves for free without knowing it. That's your real advantage, and it always has been. You don't need to manufacture proof because you never stopped watching long enough to need it. You don't need to raise your voice because volume was never where your power lived. Your power lived in memory, in timing, in the discipline to wait for the moment truth would speak for itself. And now it has. Loudly, undeniably, on its own terms. Not because you forced it, but because you never stopped being someone worth telling the truth to eventually. That's not an accident. That's a pattern built over years of choosing accuracy over approval. And patterns like that don't just describe what happened. They predict what happens next. Let's talk about what actually happens inside a person right before something like this gets exposed. Nobody plans to get caught. Every single person who's ever been exposed thought they'd built something airtight. They believed their story was consistent, their alibi was solid, their control was absolute. And then, almost always, it's the smallest thing, a voice note, a forwarded message, that unravels everything. Why does it always happen that way? Because deception is expensive to maintain. It requires constant editing, constant vigilance, constant performance across every single audience at once. Eventually the cost outpaces the discipline, and somewhere in an unguarded 30 seconds, the truth leaks through, not because the universe intervened dramatically, but because maintaining a lie forever is psychologically unsustainable. You, on the other hand, never had to maintain anything. You didn't need 14 versions of the same story depending on who was listening. You didn't need to remember which lie you told which person on which day. That's the quiet strength nobody gives credit to. Consistency requires nothing to hide. This is why the exposure feels less like an explosion and more like gravity finally taking effect. It's not sudden, it's overdue. It's the natural conclusion of a system that was never built to last. The people scrambling right now aren't scrambling because something unfair happened to them. They're scrambling because something accurate finally happened to them, and accuracy has no mercy built in. Sit with that distinction, because it matters more than it sounds like it does. Unfair events feel random, undeserved, cruel in a way that invites sympathy. Accurate events feel inevitable, deserved, and impossible to argue with, which is exactly why nobody's defending them right now. Not one person in that group chat is saying this isn't fair. They're all saying this is bad. Those are very different sentences. Here's what almost nobody is saying out loud yet, so let's say it. The voice note didn't just expose one lie about one event. It exposed a pattern of behavior that's been running underneath the surface for a long time. Once people hear the tone, the certainty, the ease with which the lie was told, they start replaying every past interaction. That's the real damage, not the content of the recording itself. The damage is what it does to memory, how it forces people to re-audit years of conversations in real time. Every past reassurance now sounds different. Every past defense now sounds rehearsed. Every trust me now gets replayed with new, uncomfortable context attached to it. This is what happens when a pattern finally gets named instead of just felt. As long as something stays unspoken, people can talk themselves out of their own instincts. The moment it becomes undeniable, every quiet doubt they suppressed comes flooding back at once, all together, overwhelming. That flood is what's happening right now, in real time, to people who thought they'd never have to face it. And you don't need to add anything to this. You don't need to comment, explain, or narrate what everyone can already hear for themselves. Your silence right now says more than any statement you could release. Because the only people who need to explain themselves after evidence like this are the ones who are guilty. Let that be the frame you carry for the rest of this. You are not the storyteller in this chapter. You are the proof that the story was true. There's a specific kind of power in being someone whose word never needed defending in the first place. That power doesn't shout. It just stands there, calmly, while everyone else does the explaining for you. Watch closely over the next few days, because this part always follows the same script. First comes denial, a flat refusal that the voice sounds like them, that it's been edited, that it's fake. Then comes minimization. It's out of context. It was a joke. You're twisting my words. Then, when neither of those works, comes the apology tour, aimed at everyone except the person who was actually harmed. Notice who they apologize to. It's rarely you. It's the audience. It's the group. It's whoever still has the power to affect their reputation. That alone tells you everything about what the apology actually is. Not remorse, but damage control with better vocabulary. Real accountability doesn't need an audience to perform for. It just needs the person it wronged. This is not a moment to gloat, and it's not a moment to explain either. It's a moment to notice how little effort this required from you personally. You didn't have to fight for this outcome. You just had to be someone the truth was eventually safe to reach. That's a different kind of victory than the one people expect. Quieter, but far more permanent. Some of them will try to reach out to you during this window. Random messages, sudden warmth, unexpected interest in catching up after months of distance. This isn't remorse finding its way to you. This is instability looking for stabilizing. You are allowed to notice that difference and respond to it, or not respond to it, entirely on your own terms. Here's the piece almost nobody talks about, so pay close attention to this section specifically. Your silence over the past months wasn't submission, it was construction. Every time you didn't argue, didn't correct, didn't perform outrage in real time, you were building something instead. You were building a track record of composure that makes today's outcome completely uncontestable. If you had reacted loudly the first time you suspected something was off, you'd be the story right now. Overreacting, jealous, dramatic, those are the labels reserved for people who speak before the proof arrives. By waiting, by staying measured, by refusing to escalate on suspicion alone, you removed every one of those labels in advance. Now there's nothing left to discredit. The only thing left standing is the evidence, and evidence doesn't need your help defending it. This is the difference between reacting and positioning. Reacting spends your credibility immediately on incomplete information for a temporary release of tension. Positioning spends nothing. It waits, it gathers, it lets the timeline do the arguing for you. And when the timeline finally arrives, positioning wins every single time reacting would have lost. You were never the passive one in this story, even when it looked that way from the outside. You were the only person operating with a long enough time horizon to actually win. Everyone else was playing for the next conversation. You were playing for the version of this moment happening right now. That's not luck, that's a skill, and it's one you built the hard way, through every moment you chose to wait instead of explode. Understand what this means going forward, because it's bigger than this one situation. This is a pattern you now know works, tested under real pressure, with real stakes, and a real outcome. The next time something feels unfair and unproven, you already know what to do with that feeling. Not suppress it, not perform it, just hold it, quietly, until it has somewhere real to land. Let's be honest about what's coming next, because pretending it's over would be dishonest. A voice note doesn't just end a conflict, it starts a reckoning that plays out over weeks, not hours. People are going to pick sides, some out of principle, some out of simple self-preservation. Watch who moves toward the truth immediately, and watch who waits to see which way is safer before committing. That second group will teach you something valuable, even though the lesson is uncomfortable. Loyalty that waits for confirmation isn't loyalty. It's risk management wearing loyalty's clothing. You'll remember who stood next to you before the evidence arrived, and who only arrived after it was safe to. That memory isn't bitterness, it's data, and data is exactly what got you here in the first place. There will also be people who try to rewrite their own role in this story, people who quietly enabled the lie, who knew more than they admitted, who chose comfort over honesty. Some of them will now try to reposition themselves as having always suspected something. You don't owe anyone the satisfaction of rewriting history in their own favor. You were there, you remember exactly how it went. This is the part where your discipline gets tested one more time, in a different way. The temptation now isn't to explode, the temptation now is to over-explain, to relive it publicly, to narrate every detail for validation. Resist that. The voice note already said everything that needed saying. Adding your own commentary on top of undeniable evidence only dilutes the clarity that got you here. Let the consequences unfold the way consequences naturally do, without your narration attached to every step of it. You don't need to press the point. Pressure that's already in motion doesn't need you pushing it. Your job now isn't to punish. Your job is simply to keep living accurately, calmly, and forward. That, more than anything you could say, is what actually closes this chapter for good. Here's where this stops being about them and starts being entirely about you. Because a moment like this doesn't just expose someone else, it reveals something about your own foundation. You built a version of yourself that didn't need to lie, didn't need to perform, didn't need constant editing to stay consistent. That version was tested today under real pressure, and it held completely, without a single crack. That's not something to take lightly. Most people never find out if their foundation actually holds. They go their whole lives being agreeable, being convenient, being whoever the room needs them to be in the moment. You found out today, under real conditions, that your version of yourself doesn't require an audience to remain the same. That is one of the rarest kinds of proof a person can be handed, and you were handed it publicly. Let this recalibrate how you see the past few months, not just today. Every moment you doubted yourself for staying quiet. That wasn't weakness, it was discipline with a long runway. Every moment you wondered if you were imagining a pattern, you weren't. You were early, not wrong. Every moment someone made you feel dramatic for trusting your own perception. They were protecting a lie you'd already seen through. Going forward, this changes the standard you hold for what you tolerate. You now have direct evidence that patience produces proof, and proof produces outcomes that speak for themselves. That means you no longer need to argue your case in real time, in the heat of a conflict, under pressure. You can simply wait, observe, and let accuracy do what accuracy always eventually does when it's given enough time. This is what becoming undeniable actually looks like in practice. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not a speech delivered in a crowded room. It's a voice note, 40 minutes old, doing more work than a year of arguments ever could have done. And it's you, standing exactly where you've always stood, finally being seen clearly by everyone else at the same time. In the days that follow, you're going to notice small shifts you didn't expect. People who used to interrupt you will start pausing before they speak around you. People who used to explain your own feelings back to you will start asking questions instead. This isn't fear, it's recalibration. The world quietly updating its model of who you actually are. You'll also notice your own relationship to conflict start to change. Situations that used to spike your heart rate will start to feel manageable, almost mechanical, almost simple. That's because you now have proof, real and recent, that staying steady produces better outcomes than reacting ever did. Once your nervous system learns that lesson at this depth, it doesn't easily forget it. Some people will try to fold this into a bigger narrative about you that isn't accurate. They'll call you cold, calculated, someone who always has an agenda, because that's easier than admitting they misjudged you. Let them. That narrative says more about their discomfort than it says about your actual character. You know the difference between strategy and cruelty, even if they need to blur that line to feel better about losing. The most important shift, though, happens somewhere quieter than any group chat or conversation. It happens in how you talk to yourself when nobody else is listening. The next time your instincts tell you something is wrong, you won't second-guess it the way you used to. You'll remember this moment, and you'll trust the version of you that waited, watched, and turned out to be exactly right. So here's where this leaves you, and it's simpler than everything that led here. You didn't need to be the loudest person in the room to be the most accurate one in it. You didn't need to fight for the truth to arrive. You just needed to be someone worth it arriving for. And today, 40 minutes and one voice note later, it finally did. If this moment did anything for you, don't let it end here, quiet and unspoken. Someone else out there is sitting in the exact silence you sat in for months, wondering if patience is actually working. Send them this. Not as gossip, not as drama, but as proof that staying steady eventually gets its evidence, because the next reckoning is already forming somewhere for someone else, and they need to know it's coming too. This isn't the end of the story. It's the moment the story finally became yours to tell. Everything after this point gets written by you, deliberately, on your own terms, without anyone else's fingerprints on it. You already proved you can wait for truth. Now prove you know what to build once you have it. Wear the mask, do the work. The rest of them are still catching up to what you already know.